Welcome. I'd like to take a moment to just thank both of you for this opportunity. This is a sincere pleasure for me to be able to address questions you have as it relates to your financial goals and your long-term financial objectives. I sincerely enjoy this work. I really enjoyed assisting and answering your questions. I thought both of you, Jason and Jessica, had excellent questions. I sincerely appreciate this opportunity. I hope you'll find my input, my answers to your questions insightful, helpful, and most importantly, you feel comfortable and confident that you can implement those answers in achieving the desired long-term financial goals you have. I'd like to start by addressing a question you have as it relates to your probate estates. You asked if I could calculate and see if there's a way you could each reduce your respective probate estates. It's a great question you have. I'd like to start with providing you with a total valuation of what your probate estate is currently. That's $274,923. And I'd like to break down the assets in which will be subject and go through probate. Starting with you, Jessica, this will be your 403B in the amount of $31,331, where you've listed your estate as the beneficiary. Your inherited IRA in the amount of $100,000, your rental property in the amount of $84,000, and the jewelry you own in the amount of $8,000. Jason, your probate estate entails the traditional IRA you have in the amount of $27,942, where you've named your estate as the beneficiary. The cash value part of your life insurance policy in the amount of $21,250. And your card collection in the amount of $2,400. This brings us to a total probate estate of $274,923 for the two of you. Probate is the process in which it governs by the state the transfer of your property and assets upon your passing to your heirs or your desired beneficiaries as it relates to all of your assets and ownership of property, your estate, that is. So starting off, how we can avoid and scale back your exposure to those assets that are subjected to go through probate as of now, I would highly recommend updating beneficiaries on all retirement accounts and the cash value part of the life insurance policy. Starting with the 403B, Jessica, you've listed your estate as the beneficiary on that account. By listing an estate, that ensures that those assets will in fact go through probate, not avoid probate. So I would highly recommend updating that. I would also recommend updating the beneficiary on your inherited IRA. Jason, I would recommend updating the beneficiary on your IRA, where you've listed the estate, your estate, as the beneficiary on that account. And then I would also recommend updating the cash value part of your life insurance policy. By updating beneficiaries on these types of accounts, you are what's referred to as transferring property by way of contract. I should say transferring those assets by contract. So it completely avoids probate because it's going to be going to a living person. Someone you do want to bear in mind that you name and list someone that's over the age of 18. So this will obviously not permit you to list your children as beneficiaries or contingent beneficiaries. You would ideally want to give thought or consideration to a guardian and then maybe even a trust. I'm going to get to that in a minute and explain that in a little bit more detail. But before I do, I'd like to move on and discuss the rental property in the amount of $84,000 that you have, Jessica. That's currently in your name. I would give thought and consideration to updating the title of that property. I know Jason recently updated and executed some legal work as it relates to the title on his business, Joe's Pub, in which you've been added to the title as joint tenancy with rights of survivorship, just as your house is titled. I would give thought and consideration to updating the title to that property. Specifically, if you title it as joint tenancy with rights of survivorship, that means that upon the passing of one of the two of you, ownership of that property would pass to the other owner on the title. So this completely avoids probate. This is how your primary residence is titled, your vehicle, the business, Joe's Pub. So this would certainly avoid the probate process as it relates to that asset you own, the rental property. This brings me to third method in how you can transfer property. You can transfer property by way of transferring it by a trust. And trust is a very helpful and useful estate planning tool. So many people think it's only for the very, very wealthy, and that maybe based on, their estate, it would not qualify or be in need of a trust, but it's a very effective tool as it relates to avoiding probate. I would first consider speaking with an attorney before moving forward with getting a trust drafted. But the thing with a trust, specifically a revocable living trust, is that you are able to essentially title property in the name of that trust. So we talked about a moment ago as it relates to your retirement accounts and the cash value part of your life insurance policy. You would not be permitted to name your children as beneficiaries, or if you did, in the case that both of you passed and they're still under the age of 18, they would not be able to take possession of those assets or those accounts. And therefore, if you didn't have a guardian picked out, the court, essentially the government, would appoint a guardian. With a trust, you can designate it and structure it in a way where you have a guardian that could be appointed in the very unlikely and unfortunate case that both of you pass along, but that could be at least listed as far as someone that can not just care for your children in the case that that's needed, but also someone you can trust that would oversee your assets and making sure that they're properly and responsibly looked after, and that they ultimately are taken possession by your children upon the age of 18 when they become adults. This can also be used to title ownership of your house or any other real estate property you have, and all assets you own as well. As I mentioned, you could list a trust as a beneficiary for retirement accounts. That can really simplify things, and then all assets you have. So I think this is really a very helpful estate planning tool. Some of the other things I'd like to point out without getting into too much detail, I really highly recommend you speak with an attorney first. But with a trust, essentially you can put all of your assets into that trust, see to it that it's funded by a trustee, which could be both of you or one of you, however you desire to structure the trust. And then you can even have, successor trustees appointed in there as well upon, one or both of your passings, that they essentially would fund the trust, because that's the very big important point I want to mention, that the trust needs to ultimately be funded in order for it to avoid probate. So that's one thing I'd like to leave you with. Make sure you're aware that you would at least need to have and see to it that the trust is funded. But you can completely avoid probate by having a trust or transferring property by way of contract in the case of your retirement accounts. And then, of course, even updating title to rental property or any other real estate you have, whether it's putting it in the name of the trust or updating it to a joint tenancy with rights of survivorship. So I hope you'll find my input and insight on this matter helpful. This was a real pleasure to be able to assist you with this process. I look forward to implementing and helping you monitor the progress going forward. And thank you so much.